I thought our love was enough, but this hidden issue changed everything. Married to a man who loves and treats me well. But, stay or leave. My husband loves me and treats me very well, but he has never made me feel sexually desired. What should I do? Stay or leave? Our story began nearly 2 years ago. We have been married for nearly 1 year and dated for 1 year prior to that. Although it sometimes feels both shorter and longer, because of how emotions can affect our sense of time, we met through friends when neither of us was looking for love. He was a devout Catholic, while I didn't follow any religion. Our backgrounds were quite different, but I was drawn to his kindness and strong moral values, which stood out even though we came from different places. From the outset, he was candid about his past and his intentions. He was saving himself mostly for marriage, having only had sex twice, once with a one-night stand and once with a short-term girlfriend. The way he spoke was pleasant, and I responded by being direct about my misgivings. As we were both in our early 30s, I thought it could be tough to interact with someone so inexperienced and constrained by religious views on sexuality. I told him straight out that I don't trust religious people who have never had sex. Despite these differences, or perhaps because of them, we found ourselves drawn into a deeper relationship. Before long, we faced the physical dimension of our growing attachment. He agreed to engage sexually before marriage, understanding my need to ensure that we had both physical and emotional chemistry. However, when we finally became intimate, the experience was underwhelming. It felt mechanical, devoid of the passion I had hoped would ignite between us. I addressed this lack of chemistry frankly, expressing my fear that his desire might not solely be curbed by religious beliefs, but perhaps he was questioning his true sexual orientation or deeper preferences. I didn't care about how inexperienced he was. I even told him I didn't need good sex, but I just wanted to make sure he had sexual desires for me. I also wanted to ensure he wasn't a homosexual in denial. Distraught, I decided to step back, unsure if we could find mutual satisfaction, and fearing a future mired in unmet desires. We ended up back together after one day when he told me to have faith in us and let time heal us. His voice, filled with a mix of hurt and hope, urged me to have faith in what could develop between us over time. His plea, sincere and heartfelt, prompted me to reconsider, and so we resumed our relationship, stepping into a marriage that promised to grow. Nearly 2 years later, the initial concerns I harbored about our sexual compatibility seemed to solidify into tangible issues. Our encounters were infrequent, roughly once every few weeks, and still lacked the spontaneity and passion I craved. Each experience felt scripted and strained, as if he were performing a duty rather than engaging in an act of love. With the exception of one time, he was affectionate in other ways, such as with massages, tender touches, and thoughtful gestures, but these never developed into closer relationships. I have no doubt that he loves me, and his tenderness comes through in everything he does, but there's still a chasm between us, full of unspoken words and unmet expectations. Moreover, it was harder for me to keep my wounds and fears contained when he admitted that he had, just once recently, engaged in masturbation with his ex-girlfriend. That, in itself, is not only the simple act of possessing sexual desire, but also implies that his soul and interest are not directed towards me. This thought tore at my self-worth and made me feel even more depressed, making me wonder how long our love would last. Every conversation regarding our intimacy, or lack thereof, appeared to center on his argument that he acted that way because my first rejection had wounded him and made him cautious. This painful revelation cut deeply into my self-esteem, feeling like a ragged tear in the fabric of my self-worth. It painted my days with heavier shades of blue, casting a melancholic hue over my everyday life. It made me question the durability of our love and the stability of our relationship, pushing me to ask myself, how much longer will our love sustain? It seems like he is using your initial rejection as a defense mechanism to justify his lack of intimacy. This could be because he consciously or subconsciously fears suffering that same rejection again. As such, he might be pulling away and avoiding being vulnerable in order to protect himself from potential emotional pain. Blaming me also conveniently removes his own responsibility for the current state of my relationship. However, it's important to understand that this is only one interpretation, and the true reasoning can only be confirmed by him. But how long could one hold on to such an injury? It had been nearly 2 years, surely time enough for healing, particularly with someone committed to standing by your side. Yet, here we were, stagnant, with me feeling increasingly rejected in sex, and him cloaked in his enduring hurt. This persistent state of unfulfillment has left me feeling betrayed, not by infidelity or deceit, but by unmet expectations and unresolved issues that eat away at the fabric of our marriage. I find myself at a crossroads, contemplating a future where my desires might forever remain just out of reach, trapped within the confines of a relationship that fulfills the heart in some ways but starves it in others. I can't help but question how we can go on for the rest of our lives like this. I feel so betrayed. Has anyone been through something similar? If so, how did you manage? I wondered if they managed to rekindle their old passions, or if they also settled for a relationship filled with emotional comfort, but lacking physical chemistry like us. How could we go on for years like this? This question overshadowed our shared moments of joy and love for each other. After reading all the comments below my post, I realized that effective communication is critical in resolving these types of issues. Perhaps I should consider having a candid conversation with him about my feelings and concerns. It may also be beneficial for me to seek professional advice or counseling to help navigate this situation. Some of the comments really impressed me. I came across advice that really changed how I handle tough conversations, making them more manageable and constructive. The first piece of advice was to imagine a calm, quiet place, away from the usual noise and chaos. It also emphasized that timing is key. You shouldn't start a deep discussion when everyone is already upset or too busy. Instead, finding a quiet time helps both people be more open and ready to talk effectively. The second tip was about preparing for the conversation. Similar to how an artist picks colors for a painting, before you start a serious talk, it's helpful to think about what you really want to say. Figuring out your feelings and what issues you need to discuss helps keep the conversation on track. This prevents the talk from drifting off topic and ensures important points are covered well. The third piece of advice focused on how you use words during the talk. The choice of words can make a big difference. Speaking honestly and clearly, using phrases like, "I feel hurt and confused when you say," instead of blaming, like, "You always make me feel," creates an environment where both people can talk openly and understand each other. It's important to keep your emotions in check throughout the conversation to keep things constructive. Lastly, after sharing feelings and concerns, the discussion should move towards finding solutions. This part is like brainstorming together, where both people work to find answers that work for everyone. This shifts the conversation from just arguing to actually working together to solve problems. Thinking back on this advice, I realize how much it has helped, not just in solving issues, but in building stronger relationships through respectful and understanding communication.